Charges. 22-year-old Makayla Bryant was killed at the Providence Point Apartments complex in January of 22. Police say a botched drug deal among Bryant, her girlfriend, and Ogilvy led to the deadly shooting.
It was late in January 26, 2022. Tallahassee streets looked like any other night. Streetlights stretching across the road, occasional cars passing, nothing stood out as unusual. Inside the vehicle, the energy has already shifted. What started as a simple meetup now feels off, like something no one wants to say out loud. Makayla Bryant, a 22-year-old student, a sorority sister, a cheerleader captain, sits in the passenger seat, eyes moving quickly, picking up on things that don't add up. The conversation is short, tense. No one is relaxed anymore. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. It was meant to be quick. In and out. No drama. But then, a movement. A hand reaches. And suddenly, there's a gun. Everything changes in an instant. Voices raise, bodies shift. The air inside that car tightens as Makayla reacts fast, too fast to think, just instinct. She reaches, fighting for control, trying to stop what's already in motion. Because what happened in the next few seconds inside that car would shake an entire university, fracture a friendship, and expose a set of choices that nobody wants to talk about. But the real question is, how did a normal night turn into this? If you're new here, make sure you subscribe to True Crime Stories Chronicles and comment below where you're watching from. Makayla M.K. Bryant wasn't supposed to be remembered for how her life ended. She was 22 years old, a young woman building something for herself, step by step. At Florida A&M University, she wasn't just another student passing through lectures and assignments. She was present. Known. The kind of person people recognized not because she demanded attention, but because her energy filled the space around her. Makayla was a cheerleader, disciplined, expressive, and confident. That role alone says a lot about who she was. It meant early practices, long routines, pushing through exhaustion and showing up with a smile even on difficult days. It meant being part of a team, carrying responsibility, and representing something bigger than herself. But beyond that, she was also just human. A daughter, a friend, someone who laughed loudly, who had plans, who talked about the future like it was something she was steadily walking toward. People close to her described her as warm and social, someone who could hold a conversation, someone who made others feel comfortable around her. And like many young adults her age, she was navigating life in real time, figuring things out, making choices, trusting people, learning as she went. There's a certain rhythm to that stage of life. You're old enough to feel independent, but still close enough to uncertainty that every decision carries weight you don't always see immediately. You trust your instincts. You trust the people around you. Sometimes, you trust too easily. Because nothing about Makayla's life pointed toward how it would end. She had a future that was still unfolding. Opportunities ahead of her. Moments she hadn't lived yet. The kind of life that continues, day after day, until one unexpected decision interrupts everything. And that's what makes this story hit differently. Because when people hear about cases like this, they often focus on the final moments, the chaos, the violence, the outcome. But before all of that, there was a life. A real one. Full of normal days, conversations, plans, and small victories that never made headlines. Makayla Bryant was not defined by that night, but somehow she ended up in a situation that would define how the world remembers her. So how did someone like Makayla end up in that car that night? That night didn't begin with fear. It began like many other nights do. Simple plans, casual conversation, nothing that suggested danger was waiting on the other side. Makayla wasn't alone. She was with someone she trusted, her girlfriend, Precious Charlton. That detail matters because it changes how everything is perceived. And that's how this started. The plan wasn't complicated. It was a marijuana transaction. Something that, to them, likely quick meetup, exchange, done. No drawn-out process. No expectation of trouble. The contact for this exchange was a man named Khalil Ogilvy. At that point, there was no visible reason to think this would turn into anything more than a short interaction. No warning signs that stood out strongly enough to stop them. No moment that clearly said, "Don't go." And that's often how situations like this begin. Not with obvious danger. A message gets sent. A location is agreed on. A time is set. Everything feels structured, almost predictable. The kind of setup that makes you believe you're in control of what's about to happen. For Makayla, this wasn't about stepping into something extreme. It was just a decision made in the flow of the night. Being with Precious likely reinforced that sense of comfort. Two people, together, heading into what seemed like a straightforward exchange. But trust can sometimes blur judgment. Not because someone is careless, but because familiarity creates confidence. When you trust the person beside you, you also begin to trust the situation they're comfortable with. You assume things have been handled. You assume it's safe enough. And in that moment, there was no visible reason for Makayla to believe otherwise. No raised alarms, no immediate threat, just a plan, a destination, and the belief that everything would go as expected. But decisions like this don't always reveal their weight immediately. Sometimes the consequences are hidden behind how normal everything feels at the beginning. And by the time something starts to feel off, you're already there, already in the car, already face to face with the situation you thought you understood. Because what Makayla walked into that night wasn't just about an exchange. There was something else behind it. Something that hadn't been made clear. Something that would change everything in a matter of seconds. But what Makayla didn't know was that this wasn't just a drug deal. The ride there didn't feel dangerous. At least, not at first. Makayla and Precious were in the car, moving through Tallahassee streets. Conversations were likely short, casual, the kind you have when you're heading somewhere with a clear purpose. There was a destination, a plan, and the expectation that it would all be over soon. The location was set, Providence Point Apartments on Stuckey Avenue. As they got closer, the surroundings began to shift. The roads narrowed. The noise of the city faded into something quieter. Apartment buildings stood in rows, lights on in some windows, dark in others. It wasn't empty, but it wasn't active either. The kind of place where things happen without drawing attention. They pulled into the complex, slowed down, and then stopped. Now they were waiting. And waiting has a way of changing everything, because when movement stops, your mind starts to notice things it ignored before. The silence feels heavier. Every passing second stretches a little longer. You start to look around more, pay attention to small details. Who's outside? Which windows are open? Is anyone watching? Inside the car, that shift may have been subtle, but it was there. The kind of feeling you can't fully explain, but you sense it. A slight discomfort. Not strong enough to make you leave, but strong enough to make you more alert. Maybe it was just the unfamiliar setting, maybe it was the time of night, or maybe it was something deeper. Because at that point, everything still looked normal on the surface. No raised voices. No sudden confrontation, just two people sitting in a parked car, waiting for someone to arrive. From the outside, it looked like just another car parked in a lot. Nothing about it would have made anyone stop and take a second look. No one passing by would have known that inside that vehicle, the situation was already beginning to shift. Quietly, almost invisibly. Time continued to pass. And then, movement. Someone approaching. The moment they had been waiting for was now right in front of them. But here's where the questions begin to matter. Because this wasn't just about showing up anymore. Who else knew about this meeting? Was it really just one person they were about to deal with? Or something more? And was everything unfolding naturally? Or had this already been set in motion long before Makayla and Precious even got into that car? At that point, there was no clear answer. Just a presence approaching the vehicle. And a situation that was about to change. Fast. Khalil Ogilvy approaches from the dimly lit side of the parking lot, closing the distance with a calm that doesn't immediately raise alarm. From the outside it looks routine, exactly what Makayla and Precious came for. A quick meetup, a short conversation, then everyone goes their separate ways. He gets closer. Close enough now to engage. The interaction begins. At first, nothing explodes into chaos. No shouting, no sudden panic. Just words being exchanged inside a confined space. Low voices, short responses, the kind of conversation that doesn't carry far beyond the car doors. But something is off. It's subtle. Not obvious enough to stop everything, but enough to be felt. The rhythm of the conversation isn't smooth. There are pauses where there shouldn't be. A slight hesitation, a shift in tone that doesn't match the situation. It's no longer just an exchange. It feels uneven. Makayla picks up on it. Not in a dramatic way, not with immediate fear, but in the way people instinctively sense when something isn't lining up. Her attention sharpens, her body language changes slightly. She's more alert now. Inside the car, space is limited. Every movement matters, every glance, every shift in position, it all becomes more noticeable. And then, the dynamic begins to change. It's no longer balanced. At the start, this was supposed to be a straightforward interaction, two sides meeting for a simple exchange. But now, control starts to lean in a different direction. Ogilvy's presence feels more dominant. The conversation tightens, less casual, more direct, less back and forth. It's as if the situation is quietly being pulled out of Makayla and Precious' control, piece by piece. Makayla senses it. And this time, it's stronger. This isn't just nerves. Something is wrong. Her focus shifts completely now, reading movements, watching closely, trying to understand what's happening in real time. Because once a situation changes like this, you don't always get a warning before it escalates. You just feel it. And then it happens. A movement, quick, deliberate. Not part of the conversation, not part of the plan. Inside the car, everything compresses into a single moment. A hand shifts position, another body reacts. And suddenly, the situation crosses a line that can't be undone. Because in that instant, the balance is gone. Makayla reacts almost immediately. There's no time to process, no time to pause and think through options. Her instincts take over, her attention locked onto the one thing that now matters most: control. Because she understands what this means. She understands what could happen next. The space inside the car becomes chaotic without anyone raising their voice. Movements become sharper, faster. The tension that had been building quietly is now fully present, no longer hidden, no longer subtle. This is no longer an exchange. This is a situation that has turned dangerous. The moment the gun appears, the space inside that car changes completely. There's no more conversation, no more negotiation, just movement. Fast, unplanned, instinctive. She reaches. Because in that instant, there's only one thought that matters. Stop this before it gets worse. Her hand goes toward the weapon, trying to gain control, trying to prevent what could happen next. The space is tight. Bodies are close. There's no room to step back, no distance to create safety. Every movement collides with another. Voices begin to overlap, short, sharp, urgent, not full sentences, just reactions. The struggle begins, hands pushing, gripping, pulling. The weapon is no longer in one person's control, it's caught between them, and that's where things become even more dangerous, because now no one fully controls what happens next. Makayla is focused, her attention locked on the gun, nothing else matters. Not the environment, not the voices, just that one object. And in moments like this, the body takes over. There's no time to think through consequences, no time to weigh options. It's instinct, fight or let go. And Makayla chooses to fight. Her grip tightens, she shifts her body, trying to angle herself in a way that gives her leverage. But the space works against her. Every move is restricted. Every second feels shorter than the last. There's resistance. Strong resistance. Ogilvy doesn't let go. The struggle intensifies. The weapon moves between them. Unsteady, unpredictable. It's no longer pointed in a controlled direction. It shifts with every movement, every pull, every sudden change in position. And that's what makes this moment so critical. Because in a struggle like this, anything can happen. Inside Makayla's mind, there's no full sentence forming, no clear plan being laid out, just flashes. This is real. This is happening. Don't let go. Her body moves faster than her thoughts can catch up. Every second is survival. Precious is there too, close enough to see everything unfold, caught in the same confined space. The situation is no longer something anyone can step away from. It's happening too fast, too close, too intense. The energy inside the car reaches a breaking point. Movements become more forceful, more desperate. The weapon shifts again, jerking slightly as control slips back and forth. And in that moment, everything becomes unpredictable. There's no warning, no pause, no clear transition from struggle to outcome. Just one final movement, a shift, a sudden change in pressure. And then, the gun went off. Up until this point, it might seem like everything went wrong in a single moment, like a normal situation that suddenly got out of control. But the deeper you look into what happened that night, the harder it becomes to believe this was ever just a simple exchange. Because this wasn't just about a deal that went bad. Investigators later revealed something critical. This meeting had the signs of a setup, not a misunderstanding, not a random escalation, but a situation that may have been heading in one direction from the very beginning. The plan Makayla and Precious believed they were walking into wasn't necessarily the same plan waiting for them at that apartment complex. What was presented as a marijuana transaction may have actually been something else entirely. And when you look back at everything, the location, the timing, the shift in behavior during the encounter, it starts to form a different picture. That uneasy feeling in the car, that wasn't random. The tension in the conversation, that wasn't just nerves. The sudden appearance of a weapon, that doesn't come out of nowhere. It suggests that Makayla wasn't just caught in a bad situation. She may have been led into one. Because in cases like this, the most dangerous part isn't always the moment things go wrong. It's the part where everything feels normal, where nothing seems off enough to stop you, where you walk into something thinking you understand it, when in reality, you don't. Makayla didn't go there expecting a fight. She didn't go there preparing for violence. She went there believing it would be quick, controlled, over in minutes. But instead, she found herself in a situation where the balance had already been taken away before she even realized it. And by the time she tried to regain control, it was already too late. At this point, what do you think? Was this planned from the beginning, or did things just spiral out of control? Let me know in the comments. One moment, everything is moving fast, voices, hands, reactions, and the next, it stops. Not because the situation is resolved, but because something irreversible has just happened. Makayla has been shot. What was seconds ago a struggle for control is now a fight against time. There's no more confusion about what this is. This is an emergency. 911 is called. Voices that were tense are now frantic. Words come out faster, louder, trying to explain something that just happened too quickly to fully process. The location is given. The situation is described. Help is on the way. But in moments like this, every second feels longer than it actually is. Time stretches. Then finally, sirens, approaching. Cutting through the quiet of the apartment complex. Emergency responders arrive and take over immediately. The scene is no longer contained inside the car. It expands outward, lights flashing, movement controlled but urgent. Makayla is pulled from the vehicle. Everything now is about saving her life. No assumptions. No conclusions. Just action. She's transported to the hospital as quickly as possible. But inside the hospital, medical teams work to stabilize her, to do everything they can. But the reality of the injury is severe. What happened inside that car wasn't something easily reversed. And then, the moment no one is ready for. Makayla Bryant is pronounced dead. Just like that. A life that had been moving forward, plans, goals, relationships, comes to an end in a single night. The news begins to spread. At first, it's disbelief. Messages, calls, confusion. People asking the same question over and over. Is this real? Because it doesn't make sense. Someone who was just alive, just talking, just making plans, is suddenly gone. For her family, the loss is immediate and overwhelming. There's no time to prepare for something like this. No gradual understanding, just a sudden absence where a daughter once was. Friends feel it too. The kind of silence that follows when someone who brought energy into every space is no longer there. The realization that the last conversation you had with them is the last one you'll ever have. And within the Florida A&M community, the impact spreads quickly. Students, teammates, people who knew her, even those who didn't, begin to feel the weight of it. What started as a normal night has now become a loss that can't be undone. Once the immediate shock of that night settled, the focus shifted to one question. What exactly happened inside that car? Law enforcement began working to reconstruct the sequence of events. Statements were gathered, accounts were compared. The goal was to understand how a planned meeting turned into a deadly encounter within minutes. Very early on, one name stood at the center of it all: Khalil Ogilvy. He was identified as the person Makayla and Precious had arranged to meet that night. As details emerged, it became clear that this was not a random encounter. This was the meeting that set everything in motion. Ogilvy was taken into custody. And, as the investigation progressed, the focus narrowed to the moments inside the vehicle. The struggle over the weapon, the shot that ended Makayla's life, and the circumstances that led to it. From the outside, some may have expected a clear-cut conclusion. But cases like this rarely unfold in a straight line. When the case moved into court, questions became the foundation of everything. What happened? The prosecution presented their argument around the events of that night, pointing to the setup, the confrontation, and the presence of a weapon during what was supposed to be an exchange. The idea that this was not just a harmless meeting gone wrong, but a situation that carried real danger from the beginning. The defense, on the other hand, focused on the struggle itself, the physical confrontation, the lack of full control over the weapon, and the argument that what happened was not a deliberate act of murder. And then came the courtroom moments that tend to stay with people. Silence filling the space as details are spoken out loud. Makayla's name repeated, not as someone in the present, but as someone being remembered. Family members sitting through testimony that forces them to relive what they've already lost. There's a certain weight in a courtroom when a life has been taken. It's not loud. It's not chaotic. It's quiet, heavy, final. As the trial moved forward, everything came down to how the jury understood those critical seconds inside the car. Not just the presence of a gun, but the struggle, the movement, the lack of full control. In the end, the verdict came back, guilty of manslaughter, not premeditated murder, but still a conviction that acknowledged responsibility for Makayla's death. In April 2024, Khalil Ogilvy was sentenced to 20 years in prison. A decision that, for some, brought a level of closure. For others, it didn't feel like enough, because no sentence, no matter how long, can restore what was lost that night. For Makayla's family, the outcome of the trial didn't change the reality they were living with. It didn't bring her back. It didn't undo the moment everything changed. What it did do was put a legal end to the question of accountability. But the emotional weight of what happened, that doesn't end in a courtroom. When you step back from everything that happened that night, one thing becomes clear. This wasn't just about a single moment. It was about a chain of decisions. And how quickly those decisions can place someone in a situation they never truly understood. Makayla didn't walk into that night expecting danger. Nothing about the plan felt extreme. It felt manageable, familiar, something that could be handled and left behind within minutes. And that's what makes this story so important. Because not every situation that feels normal is safe. Sometimes, the most dangerous environments don't look dangerous at all. They don't come with warnings or obvious threats. They look like everyday decisions. Meeting someone, trusting a setup, going along with a plan that doesn't immediately raise concern. But environment shapes outcomes. Where you go, who you go with, and what you walk into, all matter more than we often realize in the moment. And then there's trust. Makayla wasn't alone. She was with someone she trusted, someone familiar, someone who made the situation feel more secure than it actually was. But the people we trust can unknowingly lead us into danger. Not always with bad intentions, but sometimes with the same lack of awareness, the same belief that everything will be fine. And when that trust combines with a risky environment, the outcome can change instantly. Because sometimes it only takes one decision, one ride, one meeting, one moment where everything still feels under control, until it isn't. And by the time the reality of the situation becomes clear, there's no time left to step back. It was supposed to be quick. Just another night, a short meetup, a simple plan, something that would be over before it even had time to feel significant. But for Makayla Bryant, that night became the moment everything stopped. And it's important to remember, before the headlines, before the courtroom, before the tragedy, there was a life. A young woman with goals, friendships, and a future that was still unfolding. Someone who showed up, who mattered, who left an impression on the people around her. Her story is not just about how she died. It's about who she was while she was here, and how quickly everything can change. If this story moved you, don't forget to like and subscribe to True Crime Stories Chronicles. And tell me, what would you have done differently in her situation?